when the LIU Sharks entered the swamp to play the Florida Gators. Nobody reasonably expected them to win. But they didn't just lose. They got beat down, 55-0. And the final score, like telling you with the shutout, is really underselling it, because the Florida Gators hadn't beaten a team that badly since 2019. It was their first shutout since 2021, and they held LIU to only 2 first downs for the entire game. The best play that they had was in the fourth quarter. It was like a 28-yard pass. So when it comes to their offense, LIU essentially had none of it. They were erased in that entire game. Now, the Florida Gators went on to go only 4-8 during that season, but at the moment, they were a top 25 ranked opponent, and it looked like an SEC program was just beating down a program from the FCS. But then something strange happened, because just 7 days later, LIU decided that they were going to play another FBS opponent. And after that beatdown, you would imagine they'd be shell-shocked. So they go into Eastern Michigan, which is a Mid-American Conference program, a far cry from the SEC. And this time, the results weren't just a close game. They won. The final score was 28-23. Remember how this same LIU squad could barely move the ball against Florida? Remember, not 2 touchdowns. They had 2 first downs. They then go on to put over 450 yards of total offense on Eastern Michigan. 2 FBS opponents with 2 wildly different outcomes. And they were even leading the game by essentially 2 scores deep into the fourth quarter. The final score looked closer than it really was. LIU was controlling that game against Eastern Michigan. And the final scores, those are the facts. And all 3 of the teams that I just mentioned have a narrative that played out for the remainder of the 2025 season. Because when I first learned about this upset, I assumed that Eastern Michigan was just a very bad FBS team, and that's not exactly accurate. Granted, they weren't above average, but they were still 4-8 by the time the season was over. They even beat Louisiana out of conference just 2 weeks later. Eastern Michigan was able to beat some football teams. They just couldn't beat LIU, the same team that the Florida Gators stomped on. The question that we keep circling around is, how does all this happen? Because college football is all over the place right now, between what's happening at the power conferences, the rest of FBS, and FCS. And LIU may have just exposed the overlap between all of them, because even the rest of their season is still just as wild as how it began. Now, as far as the LIU Sharks go, almost nobody knows about the Long Island University Sharks. Full disclosure, I'm from originally the New York City area, and LIU is a program that historically speaking did not play football, at least not in the FCS, because Long Island University had a Brooklyn campus, and then they had a Long Island campus. They called it LIU Post. That one is where the football team was, because LIU Post was its own athletic department, and they competed in Division II. But their football team was actually really good. So good, in fact, that they went 10-0 in the regular season. Again, this is for the Division II level. That was back in 2018. That LIU program beat an FBS opponent. And yes, we're now talking about Eastern Michigan. But remember, LIU is an afterthought for the people who actually live in Long Island. I would know, because my own father-in-law lives in Long Island. He watches college football and didn't even know LIU had a team, at least until I told him. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. My name is Rob, and if you really want an unfiltered perspective on college football, the type that actually helps you to see it clearly, then you are in the right place. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I'll try to read them all. But in between that jump to the FCS and the Eastern Michigan victory, which was preceded by the Florida Gators beatdown, they actually went 0-10 in their first season competing in the FCS. New scholarship limits, going up a level, having to deal with recruiting. Clearly, all of that didn't go so well, at least not initially. And keep in mind, I just told you, they went 10-0 to finish their Division II stint. That's at LIU Post, and immediately opened up 0-10 when they started in the FCS. And if you fast forward to the rest of the 2025 season, things got a little bit weirder, because when they got into actual FCS games, they started losing to some teams that were, for the most part, pretty pedestrian. Then they won 2 games. lost a close one, and finished off winning their final 3. That made LIU 6-6. Technically their best season since coming up to the FCS. But the record, going 500, that doesn't get you into a bowl game or something at the FCS level. But it also doesn't matter, because beating Eastern Michigan might as well be the exact same thing as winning a bowl game when your name is the LIU Sharks. And among those final 3 victories, they actually beat the St. Francis Red Flash out of Pennsylvania. And if that name sounds familiar, because I technically just did a video on them, because they also beat an FBS opponent, and then decided to eject from Division I entirely. So this year in 2026, they'll be playing football in Division III. The fact of the matter is that by the time LIU got into Northeast Conference play, they had the best defense in their entire conference. We've already established that their offense wasn't all that abysmal. I mean, granted, it sure enough looked like it when they played the Gators, but Eastern Michigan made them look like a very real football team. When all of this gets thrown on the board, the question is no longer just about LIU, but what actually was happening around them with every team they were playing. Because the SEC, that is an entirely different brand of football. It's the most well-funded professional sports league disguised as college athletics. The Big Ten might have something to say about it, but top to bottom, it's the SEC, and the NIL values basically prove it. So when LIU goes over to play them, at that moment, the Gators look like a very real team in the top 25 of the nation. Things didn't go according to plan for the Florida Gators in 2025, but they also have an incredibly challenging strength of schedule baked into every single season because they're in the SEC. So if you put them and their conference all the way at the top, and then travel down to Eastern Michigan, which I think it's safe to say, the Mid-American Conference is basically the basement when it comes to FBS. You could argue for the Conference USA, or maybe even the Sun Belt if it made you feel better. But I think on every single metric, the MAC, they fall to the bottom rung. And EMU was a respectable team in their conference. They didn't win much, but they also weren't awful. But playing against LIU, by all estimations, like when the season was done, they were an average FCS program. That wasn't just a game. It's a game that legitimately got away from Eastern Michigan. When it comes to upsets, as far as I understand it, between the FCS and the FBS level, what is normally supposed to happen is that FBS teams just have more depth, even when you get down to the margins. Like, an FCS team might have enough players, at least in their starting lineup, who can make the game look interesting for a while. But when you have to go to your bench, start mixing up the packages and do substitutions, you just can't hang. Because the guys you're bringing in just aren't ready to play at that level. They didn't just hold it together. They executed a complete game. So much so that in the fourth quarter, they were actually the ones in control. Eastern Michigan was playing catch-up while playing at home. And of course, if EMU had won, it would not have been considered an upset. But what it would have felt like for those players to squeeze a victory out of that game might as well be an upset. And we have no idea what's going to happen for the LIU Sharks going forward. Anytime you bring an FBS game and you're in the FCS, it's supposed to launch you to bigger and better things. They just got to the FCS level not long ago. Most of the people in their area who actually like college football aren't paying that much attention to them. But if there ever was a reason to give the LIU Sharks a second look, we now have one. Because when they walk into another FBS stadium this season, because they're going to play the Kansas Jayhawks out of the Big 12, I fully expect their coaches to tell all of those players, do not overlook the LIU Sharks. Because although you might have more talent, they can catch you slipping because they've already pulled it off once, which means that it can definitely happen again. If you actually made it all the way to the end of this video, I do have to admit that thank you doesn't do it justice anymore because you are a real one. If you have any reaction at all to something that I said, I do invite you to sound off in the comments. I don't always get to respond to everything, but I do the absolute best that I can to read them all. If nothing else, and you really just want to see more content like this, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.